Hey there, sports fans. How are we? I'm fine, thanks. Thanks for asking. Welcome to the 10 Yards Back podcast, YouTube channel, video series, now available in audio only on Spotify, the green streamer. If you listen to Spotify, if you have an account there, head over there, search for the number 10 Yards Back, same as here, same as on Twitter, X rather, and you'll find me bringing you the same information as everybody else, but a couple of days later, but this time in audio only. So with that, I'm just looking at my mug as I come in your ears. So I'm trying out a new microphone this week, just to try to improve the high quality rugby league content even more with a higher quality microphone. If it doesn't work, I'll scrap it. I'll go back to the blue one again next week. All right, that's the technical stuff out of the way. Now to the rugby league content. This weekend we had another round 4, but this time it was of the Challenge Cup. Yes, the Challenge Cup, the oldest of them all. The old man, the Challenge Cup, everyone's probably second favourite rugby league Northern Hemisphere based competition, where the Championship meets the Super League, where there's a massive potential for upset in every round, and this one was no exception, except not quite where we thought the upset was going to be. I'll put the scores up here if I haven't already. It was quite hard to get the scores. You had to really search for the scores this weekend, and I'll come to that. Not a bad weekend of rugby league overall. If you look at the stats, quite a lot of points scored. 370 odd points scored across all 8 games. My first comments on this this weekend in particular are going to sound a bit negative, but don't worry, I'll get back onto it. So I'm going to start with my number 1 for this week is the actual coverage of the weekend's rugby, the Challenge Cup. Now, I used to love the Challenge Cup for coverage. The Challenge Cup used to be, even up to, let's say, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, something like that, the Challenge Cup was a real good fishing rod for new fans because it was a BBC-owned commodity. The Challenge Cup was the BBC competition, and so you always knew where to find it. If it was a Challenge Cup weekend, you knew there was going to be a match on Saturday, there was going to be one on a Sunday, not usually on a Friday, maybe like a BBC Two game or something like that. But it was going to be on BBC, it was going to be on telly, and when iPlayer came in, you knew that you could catch it up as well, so it was perfect. So even if you weren't able to watch it live, you could at least catch it up. Then a few years ago, it kind of changed. Sky got into the mix of the Challenge Cup, which, is fine. Channel 4, I think, even got into the mix a little bit with coverage of the Challenge Cup, but it was still BBC. Now, you weren't going to get all games, but you were at least going to get some games, and you kind of knew where to find them. This weekend, we had 8 matches, 8 80-minute face-offs in rugby league, and if we put the matchups back up there, there's some real tasty ones on there. Salford versus Bradford. Salford going through a rough patch. Bradford knocked out Castleford in the last round. That's a good game. Huddersfield versus Wakefield. Huddersfield have yet to win in the Super League. Wakefield are on the way up. That's a real interesting one because this could be Huddersfield's chance to get something, and all they've got to do is knock Wakefield, this year's up and comers, off the perch. Great, good game that. Warrington Widnes. All right, if you speak to the media, they'll say that was a good match, but it's less appealing to me. Now, of those 8 matches, only 2 of them even had a camera or a commentator at them, and of those 2, only one of them was supported by a major broadcasting network. And no offense to the other guy, I'll get to that in a second. And the one that was on the major network was not on television. It was streaming only. So 8 games all have at least one Super League team in them at a Super League stadium. Only 2 of them are even touched by anyone, even bothered to be covered by anyone. And they're both streaming only. Now, But what I will say, the BBC iPlayer and the Sportsman YouTube channel, I'm super glad they did that, because otherwise we'd have had nothing. The coverage was very good. You can hardly tell. I mean, you can tell the difference between Sky, because Sky is very expensive coverage. If you subscribe to Sky, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. The BBC and the Sportsman coverage were very much identical, really. Really good coverage. The commentary team were excellent. I even got a couple of good lines in there when Joe Batchelor spilled the ball in the Saints game. It was, he's dropped his shop in there. Perfect. That's exactly what you want from a commentator, a sports commentator. Just lines like that, which you kind of hear and you go, yeah, what? Dropped his shop in? What are you talking about? But it's difficult to track. I mean, you've got 16 rugby league teams with 16 fan bases having to scrap around to find their games. Now, yes, of course, the answer is go to the game. Go to that game and you'll see it. But realistically, I'm not going to do that. I don't live in Salford. I'm not a Salford fan, but I still want to see that game. I don't live in Hull, but I'd have watched that Hull KR game. The one in Perpignan, forget about that. You got last year's, not last year's, year before, Featherstone always doing great in the Championship against a struggling Catalans. That would have been a good game to watch. So the fact that we've got this this sort of drought of coverage for this is a bit troubling to me, particularly when the way it used to be was that the Challenge Cup was the fishing rod. So it's a bit troubling. What I think needs to be what needs to happen, and I know everyone's asking, Jim, what needs to happen? What's your advice on this? Your personal, professional, clueless advice on this? I say give the Challenge Cup away. Keep it, of course. Keep the prestige and the tradition, but give the competition away to someone. Give it to Eddie Hearn. Give it to, I don't know if IMG even want it, but let them do with it what they want. Absolutely what they want. Let them do with it. I don't know. Maybe you turn every Challenge Cup round into a magic weekend where it's all at the same stadium. Maybe you turn it into a 2-city event. You pick a city in Yorkshire, a city in Lancashire, and you have it there. You split the games 50-50. Whatever. I don't know. I'm not a marketing guy. All I know is that something needs doing with it. And there's this weird mystique around the Challenge Cup, particularly in that it's traditional. It's the old man. It's the Challenge Cup. We don't mess around with the Challenge Cup. It is what it is. Anyone can win it. And there's always this worry when you try to modernize a traditional thing, that you'll lose the tradition in the modernity. But I think that's false. I think the quickest way that we can lose this tradition is by not making it modern. I think you have to allow modernity to embrace tradition and not insist that traditions stay exactly the way they are. So I don't know how we do it, but it has to change. We have to be able to watch it. We have to be able to see the scores. I mean, for example, on Friday when Saints were playing Leeds, at the same time Salford were playing Bradford and Hull KR were playing Oldham. The commentators didn't even mention the scores of the matches. Now, when they're all on TV, I hate the fact that you can't seem to avoid the scores of the Super League games. I think it's ridiculous that all games are on TV, yet you're going to spoil it for everyone by showing you the scores. But we know that there's only 2 Challenge Cup games on. Let us know how the others are going. That didn't even happen. It's something weird's going on. I think it needs to all come under one umbrella. We need to give it to one broadcast organisation to do with something with it, because I worry that if we can't watch this thing, it's going. And I certainly don't want that to happen. All right, number 2. All the Championship sides are out. All the Championship sides are out. For the audio-only listeners, I just took a sip of my drink. That's why I made that noise. No, it's not Strongbow. All the Championship sides are out. It's sad. I always yearn for that upset. And if you look at the fixtures, like I just said, there were a couple of potential upsets there. Bradford being the biggest potential upset. They already beat Castleford in the previous round. And Featherstone, I felt also could have been an upset, given their performance versus Catalans' current performance. But little did I know that Sam Tompkins was going to be available for this game. So I think it could have been a different game if Tompkins wasn't available. Now, if you ask Widnes, they'll say that could have been an upset, and it almost was. But I don't know. I was never going to buy that one. Now, they're out. There are some monumental scores there. Some monumental scores across the park, really. So what I want to do is look at the half-time scores and say, you know what? The Championship sides brought something to that weekend. It's all well and good to say, oh, they're out, it's fine. You know, that was always going to happen. But if you look at some of these scores, the halftime scores, I don't think it was, it wasn't always going to happen. It wasn't as, you look at the scores and you think, yeah, okay, that's what I thought was going to happen. But if you look at the halftime scores, it's a very different story. Obviously not the Leigh or the whole KR game, but Bradford were beating Salford at halftime. Widnes were right there in it with Warrington. In fact, I think they were leading until about 38 minutes. And the Featherstone game was pretty competitive as well. So the Championship sides are out, but I just want to stress that they put up a good fight in the first half. And so did everybody. So you can't even say, well, they burned out, they lost their energy, whatever. The halftime scores here, it was very much a second half weekend, really. That Wigan game, I almost turned that off at 16 minutes, thinking it was a done deal. It was not, of course, and we'll get to that in a minute. But the Championship sides are out. I think that's sad, but it's not the end. You know, we can still enjoy the Challenge Cup. All right, number 3. I'm going to take this a little bit away from the Challenge Cup now because I've talked about it a little bit too much. Another sip there for the audio listeners. Sneed to Warrington. This was something that kind of broke on Thursday. So I'm going to, because I like the sound of my own voice, I'm going to give you my thoughts on it. Not really anything to do with the Challenge Cup, but it is sort of a 6 again for the weekend. It's definitely a talking point of what happened over this weekend. So Mark Sneed is going to Warrington. I obviously don't work at Salford or Warrington, so I don't know the ins and outs, like whether it was a pull or a push, or whether Sneed just wanted out, whether Sneed just didn't want to not get paid his wages anymore. Now, Mark Sneed, I think every team really wanted Mark Sneed. You can basically guarantee all your tries are going to get converted, all your penalties are going to get kicked. So that's a big points advantage because he's a great kicker. He's also a really good playmaker, like a territorial kicker. You know, you can basically choose on the park where your team is going to pick the ball up. 40-20s, whatever. I hate them anyway. But he also does a shift in defence, and Salford are really going to miss him. It's going to be a real gap for Salford, and I worry about that because I said a couple of weeks ago, I really hope I'm wrong about how Salford's fortunes are going to go this year. We need Salford. We need a good Salford. I also think on the other side, Sneed going to Warrington is actually going to make Warrington worse. And, you can mark the occasion. What is it? Today is probably this is coming out on the 17th of March. Sneed is going to make Warrington worse, not because it's Sneed. Him personally is not going to do that. But trying to shoehorn this extra scrum half into a team that is already well established is going to make Warrington worse. It's happened before. You brought in John Bateman last year, halfway through the season, and he did less than nothing. This is different because Sneed's actually a permanent signing, but here's why I think he's going to make Warrington worse. If you watch the first half of that Wakefield game, Warrington-Wakefield last weekend, George Williams was perfect kicking. He knew exactly where he wanted Wakefield to pick up the ball, and that's exactly where they picked it up, and that's where they played from. They could set the defence around it. Wakefield got a bit clever midfield, and that's why they ended up winning the game. So they don't really need his territorial kicking, because Williams is good at that, great at that, and he's King George. They're not going to tell Williams not to do that anymore. That's his job, right? Goal kicking, penalties. They're already doing a pretty good job with that as well. I think it's Thewlis at the minute who's kicking for them. He's doing pretty well. So, yeah, okay, maybe they can scratch another 2 points a match, which, isn't nothing given the state of the league at the minute. I just don't think they need Sneed in there to do that. And like I said, he's a fantastic player. I'd love him at my team. Warrington is one of the probably 2 teams at the minute that I could think where Sneed is actually going to make them worse. It's kind of reminiscent of the Huddersfield of a few years ago, 2023, I think, season, where they'd had a decent 2022. Everyone thought 2023, yeah, they'll nail this on this year. But in that year, they had Farge, Connor, Lolohea, Russell, and Price, just to name a few, all competing for those fullback/halfback positions. And it caused upset because no one knew where they were playing. No one knew if everyone was competing every week for their role. And I think that's going to be a little bit the same with Mark Sneed. So mark it down, 17th of March, potentially, maybe the 18th. Sneed will be back at Salford as soon as they sort out their financial situation. Also, just as an aside, in the write-up that I saw of this, they boasted a 5-figure transfer fee for Sneed. Maybe just say transfer fee. Maybe don't highlight that it was 5 figures. That's not that much. All right. Number 4, the champions are out. Wigan are out. Currently, the Challenge Cup sits in their trophy case with every other trophy in the world. World Club Challenge, Super League, League Leaders, Challenge Cup. They did the 4 last year. They can't do it again this year. And that's why I think it's a good thing that the champions are out now. I'm not just saying that because I'm not a Wigan fan. There are 2 reasons why it's good. One, I love a first time, right? Now, Wigan did that last year, and that was the first time that had been done for a while. I want somebody else to have the opportunity to do that twice in a row, or at least for Wigan to have the opportunity to do that twice in a row in the future. It's very difficult to do. And to be spoiled with that over and over again, I didn't really want that yet. I want to save that for the future. I want to selfishly, I want to save that accolade. I want to save that team for the future. But number 2, the champions are out now. So everybody that won this weekend is now thinking, all right, well, I guess I'm winning the Challenge Cup then. Now that Wigan are out, now that team that the media have been telling us is invincible are out, I can win this thing now. And I think that's great, because that's what we need. We need people to not know what's going to happen, particularly in this competition where upsets are par for the course, and this competition which is hopefully going to be accessible to the everyman through BBC coverage or whatever. So the champions are out. I personally think that's a good thing. Not just because I don't like Wigan or anything like that, but it opens it up. Who's going to be the new guy? Salford. Maybe I'm wrong about them, but I don't think they're going to win League Leaders. I don't think they're going to win the final this year. They can win the Challenge Cup. Leigh could win the Challenge Cup again, prove everybody wrong. They lost their team. They could prove it wrong. This sets up some fantastic stories. And all right, Wigan weren't definitely going to win it, but everyone kind of thought that they were, and now they're not. Champions are at number 4. Number 5, Video Ref and Captain's Challenge. I've already kind of talked about I've already talked to death about the coverage of the Challenge Cup, which was sparse at best, being generous. The broadcast companies also chose not to have any video ref or Captain's Challenge, which I think is absolutely, the Captain's Challenge thing is absolutely fine. The video ref thing is a bit weird, but as long as you're consistent and the Challenge Cup never has video ref, then I think you're okay. It made a big difference, though, didn't it? And again, this is back to maybe we're spoiled that every match is not on TV, and we even have Captain's Challenge anymore, and therefore every match has video ref. Maybe we're a bit spoiled, but I think it made the dynamics different. I didn't really miss it at the time. Watching the games back, I just kind of thought, oh, you never sent that up. There were a few moments there where the ref definitely would have sent the decision or the incident up. I think there was a knock on behind the Leeds try, if I remember. Maybe it was the Wigan. I can't remember the specifics, but at one point there was a knock on behind the try line, for example. That would have gone up to the video ref to make sure it was a knock on and not just it wasn't hit by the opposing team. So all these little decisions the referee just made, and nobody complained except Aidan Caesar, who seemed to complain a lot. In fact, we actually got a yellow card for dissent. I think John Asiata was sent off for dissent because the whole team were not happy with some of these decisions. It was almost like they were saying, well, no, someone must have a smartphone around here. We can use that as a video ref. The players really wanted it. But as an audience, I think it was fine without, to be honest. Maybe if my team had lost, which they didn't, I would have been singing a different tune. But I think at the minute, it's fine without it. Let's not lose it. But I think it was okay without it. It just made a much bigger difference than I thought it would have. All right. Number 6 of my 6 again. We're ending on a positive note again. I like doing this. Last week I ended with Adam Swift's skills in scoring his try against Wigan. Huddersfield were unsuccessful in that instance. Today's number 6 is simply Lewis Martin. Nope, not the money-saving expert. The try-scoring expert, Lewis Martin. 21-year-old lad. Plays for Hull FC. He was the first player to score a try against Wigan in 8 hours or whatever it was of rugby league. Whatever Dave Woods wouldn't shut up about. He was the guy at the weekend who caused that upset. I think him and Aidan Caesar working seamlessly together, perfectly together, caused that upset at the weekend. Wigan out, Hull FC proceed to the next round. And this kid scored a hat-trick. It was amazing. 53, 72, 77 minutes. That's 2 tries against the indestructible, impenetrable, invincible Wigan in 5 minutes, which is insane. The reason he's one of my talking points, and I kind of mentioned him last week, I think, in passing, as one of these players who's kind of setting himself up, putting his flag down. The reason he's one of my talking points this week is because for this young man to do what he did against the players that he did it against is just, it takes so much balls, and we should be talking about it because that kid is going to be part of our lore coming up. You're going to hear his name a lot. So the try on 53 minutes, for example, let's just put this into context. On 53 minutes, right? I think it was Caesar who just lobs a pass half the width of the field and he catches it. This kid, this 21-year-old, catches this ball, right? He starts to run. He starts doing his job. And he's faced with not 1, but 4 defenders. Now, I'm just going to read these names to you and tell me if you recognise them. Liam Farrell, Bevan French, Zach Eckersley, Adam Kieran, and Sam Walters was in the mix there as well, though he was a bit less likely to make that tackle. He could have helped. So he's faced with these 4 players. 4 players who've all played in at least 1 grand final. Most of them 2. 4 players who, 2 weeks ago were kings of the world in Vegas, destroying wingers like him, pushing them into touch, getting them out of there, destroying their dreams. Yet he decides to take them all on. Not just on the wing, but actually coming infield and weaving through them and ignoring their attempts, and ultimately actually being tackled, but getting the ball down anyway. And I think that feat is amazing. The second try that he scored on 72 minutes comes off a beautiful kick. I can only assume that was Caesar again. Yeah, all right, shut up about Caesar. He was man of the match anyway, so, sorry, player of the match. So clearly he had a big involvement in all these tries, so it was probably him. Beautiful kick to the sideline. It's picked up perfectly by Martin. He starts to run and, shit. Who's in front of him but Bevan fucking French? The guy. Superman. Bevan French is in front of him. The soul stealer. The game changer. The destroyer. He sees French in front of him. And he thinks, all right, I'm going to have to get rid of this ball. Psych! And he plays French like a fiddle. He fakes the offload. He ducks around him and he puts the ball down. I think French touches him, but French is just amazed at this point of like, what the fuck is this kid doing? Even thinking about taking me on? Me, Bevan French, former Man of Steel, current world champion, Bevan French. And I thought the exact same thing. I thought, you cheeky bastard, how dare you do this? But he did it. The kid did it. It was a beautiful try. It was perfect. That the best thing for me as a casual watching that game, the best thing for me about that was that perfect try only got them closer to winning. That didn't actually seal the deal. His 77 minutes one did, and that was a little bit more cut and dry. But that just got them further. So even though you'd just seen this wonder kid do this amazing thing, they were still in the game, baby. They still had points to score. They still had to kick the conversion to even get them in with a chance of getting closer to that. So it wasn't over. All right, Lewis Martin, my number 6. Bit of a weird one this week, I'll admit, because I wasn't able to watch all of the games. So there's probably stuff I'm missing out on. Number 1, we got coverage. Number 2, all the championship sides are out. Number 3, Sneed to Warrington. Sneed. Number 4, the champions, Wigan Warriors, are out. Number 5, the absence of the video ref, the captain's challenge. And number 6, the wonder kid, Lewis Martin. All right, guys, let me know what you think your 6 again for the Challenge Cup round 4 were. Let me know what you think of my new microphone. Let me know what you think about my sipping updates if you're listening to the audio. Head over to Spotify, follow us, subscribe, do all that stuff. I'm also on X. Don't post a lot. But follow me wherever I go, guys. All right. Thanks for watching. See you.